Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Kopidana Balaba Grihadari Jaya Grihadari Kopidana Balaba Grihadari Jaya Grihadari Yasodanandana Radha-dana-ranjana Jaya Radha-dana-ranjana Yasodanandana Radha-dana-ranjana Jaya Radha-dana-ranjana Yamunadiravarachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Kopidana Balaba Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Kopidana Balaba Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Yasodanandana Radha-dana-ranjana Jaya Radha-dana-ranjana Yasodanandana Rajadanarangana Jaya Brajadanarangana Yamunatira Varachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamunatira Varachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramhangsa Pravadakacharya Asadharasati Shri Shriman His Divine Grace Shalisi Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Haribo Slava Sabrani Bhaktam Slava Shri Guru Shri Grangi Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane Namaste Saraswatunde Ve Gauravani Bhajarane Nirvishesha Shinduvadi Paskatyade Titharane Om Agyanatvinandasya Garanjana Stalakaya Chaksura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Hayam Didati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakans Vitam Scha Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prashubhanu Sudha Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakapa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvyavacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 3, Gajendra's Prayers of Surrender, Text 17. Madrik Prapana Pashupashu Vimokshanaya Muktaya Buri Karunaya Namo Kayaya Lalaya Swamshena Sarva Tanubrin Manasi Pratita Prayagdrishe Bhagavate Brihate Namaste. Drik Prapana Pashu Pashu Vimokshanaya Muktaya Buri Karunaya Namolalaya Samsena Sarva Tanubrid Manasi Pratita Pratyagrishe Bhagavate Brihate Namaste. Madrik Prapana Pashu Pashu Vimokshanaya Muktaya Buri Karunaya Namolalaya Swamsena Sarva Tanubrid Manasi Pratita Prayagrishe Bhagavate Brihate Namaste. Madrik, like me. Prapana, surrendered. Pashu, an animal. Pasha, from entanglement. Vimokshanaya, unto he who releases. Muktaya, unto the Supreme who's untouched by the contamination of material nature. Puri Karunaya, who are unlimitedly merciful. Namaha, I offer my respectful obeisances. Alayaya, who are never inattentive or idle from the purpose of my deliverance. Swam Sena, by your partial feature as Paramatma. Sarva, of all. Tanubrit, the living entities embodied in material nature. Manasi, in the mind. Pratita, or acknowledged. Pratyagdrishe, as a direct observer of all activities. Bhagavate, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brihate, or unlimited. Namaha, I offer my respectful obeisances. Te, unto you. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. As an animal such as I has surrendered unto you, who are supremely liberated, certainly you will release me from this dangerous position. Indeed, being extremely merciful, you incessantly try to deliver me. By your partial feature as Paramatma, you are situated in the hearts of all embodied beings. You are celebrated as direct transcendental knowledge, and you are unlimited. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport, the word Brihate Namaste have been explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Brihate Shri Krishnaya. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna. There are many tattvas such as Vishnu tattva, Jiva tattva, and Shakti tattva. But above everything is the Vishnu tattva, which is all-pervading. This all-pervading feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is explained in the Bhagavad Gita 10:42, wherein the Lord says, Ataiva bhavanai tena kim gyatena tva arjuna vishtavyamidam kritsnam ekam sena stito jagat. What need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. Thus Krishna says that the entire material world is maintained by his partial representation as Paramatma. The Lord enters every universe as Garbhodakashai Vishnu, and then expands himself as Kshirodakashai Vishnu, to enter the heart of all living entities, and even enter the atoms. Andantarasta paramanu charantarastam. Every universe is full of atoms, and the Lord is not only within the universe, but also within the atoms. Thus, within every atom, the Supreme Lord exists in his Vishnu feature as Paramatma. But all the Vishnu tattvas emanate from Krishna. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 10.2, Aham Adir Hi Devanam. Krishna is the Adi, or the beginning of the Devas of this material world. Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara. Therefore, he is described here as Bhagavate Brihate. Everyone is Bhagavan. Everyone possesses opulence. But Krishna is Brihan Bhagavan, possessor of unlimited opulence. Ishvara Parama Krishna. Krishna is the origin of everyone. Aham Sarvasya Prava. Even Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara come from Krishna. Vatak Parataram Nanyat Kinchit Asti Dhananjaya. There is no personality superior to Krishna. Therefore, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Bhagavate Brihate means unto Shri Krishna. In this material world, everyone is Pashu, an animal, because of the Bali conception of life. Yasyatma buddhi kunape tritaduke swadi kalatradishu boma ijadi yatirtha buddhe sahale nikarhichish ganesh vabhageshu saeva gokara. A human being who identifies the body made of three elements as the self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsmen, who considers the land of his birth to be worshipable, and who goes to a place of pilgrimage simply to bathe rather than to meet men of transcendental knowledge there, is to be considered like a cow or an ass. The Bhagavatam 10:84-13. Practically everyone therefore is a pashu, an animal, and everyone is attacked by the crocodile of material existence. Not only the king of the elephants, but every one of us is being attacked by the crocodile and is suffering the consequences. Only Krishna can deliver us from this material existence. Indeed, he is always trying to deliver us. Ishvara sarabhutanam hrideshyarjuna tishtati. He is within our hearts and he is not at all inattentive. His only aim is to deliver us from material life. It is not that he becomes attentive to us only when we offer prayers to him. Even before we offer our prayers, he incessantly tries to deliver us. He is never lazy in regard to our deliverance. Therefore this verse says, Puri Karunaya Namaha Namo Lalaya. It is the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord that he always tried to bring us back home, back to Godhead. God is liberated and he tries to make us liberated. But although he is constantly trying, we refuse to accept his instructions. Sarva dharma prachaja mamekam sharanam vraja. Nevertheless, he has not become angry. Therefore, he is described here as Puri Karunaya, unlimitedly merciful in delivering us from this miserable material condition of life, taking us back home, back to Godhead. So the translation again. Since an animal such as I have surrendered unto you, who are completely liberated, certainly you will release me from this dangerous position. Indeed, being extremely merciful, you incessantly try to deliver me. By your partial feature as Paramatma, you are situated in the hearts of all embodied beings. You are celebrated as direct transcendental knowledge, and you are unlimited. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskyatyade Siddhare. Here it talks about Krishna being Paramatma within everyone's heart. That is, Krishna has expanded himself throughout the material and the spiritual universes. And specifically, he's expanded himself in the heart of all living entities as Paramatma. And to perceive Paramatma's presence requires intelligence, spiritual intelligence. Because, as it says, above this gross body is the subtle body, our mind, intelligence, and our false ego. And above the false ego is the soul, ourselves. We're conscious of this body and things in relationship to the body. But above the soul is the Supreme Soul, the Super Soul. And as it explains here, he's always conscious. He's always supremely conscious. As he says in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedaham samatitani vartmanarani cha arjuna pravishami cha bhutani mam tu vedana kasyana. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that's happened in the past, everything that's happening in the present, and everything that's going to come in the future. I also know all living entities, but me no one knows. So here Krishna is talking in his form as Paramatma, within the heart of all living entities. Now, it is relatively simple to understand our existence as a spiritual being. The fact that this body, which we identify ourselves in illusion as ourselves, we can see it's constantly changing. But the person who identifies himself or herself with the body is always the same person, ourselves. We're always conscious of one body or another body. We've been conscious of unlimited bodies, practically speaking, because they're always changing. But we ourselves who are conscious of these bodies, we're always the same. So that's proof of our eternality, because whatever this body has gone through hasn't affected our identity as a spiritual, conscious, living entity. When we say spiritual, we mean conscious. Here we're living in the material nature, and the material nature is unconscious. The floor that we may be sitting on is not conscious. You can take a knife and stick it into the floor will not complain. But the body, which is the same elements as the floor, because it has a conscious soul within the body, therefore the body, if you stick a knife into someone, they'll complain. Because not that the body is going to complain, but the person within the body, feeling the knife, is going to complain. When the soul leaves the body, then you can stick as many knives into the bodies as possible, and the body will not complain, because the body is material. Now above the body is the super soul, as we're souls, as we're conscious, but there's someone else within us who is conscious not only of our bodies, but of all the bodies. And how do we know that? Because we're dependent upon that Supreme Soul to give us remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. For a devotee, Krishna helps the devotee remember him and see things in relationship to him. That's called knowledge. And Krishna helps one forget one's mistaken conceptions that we've learned since time immemorial of identifying ourselves with this body, with our race, with our country, with so many different things. Krishna helps us forget this and become aware of who we actually are gradually. And for the non-devotee, Krishna takes away all the spiritual intelligence So to understand the difference between ourselves and this body becomes very difficult. What to speak of the existence of a person who's giving us remembrance and knowledge and forgetfulness. So for the devotee, Krishna helps the devotee, or the aspiring devotee, remember him, and for the non-devotee, Krishna helps the non-devotee forget him. So that although this philosophy can be explained to a non-devotee, for hundreds of years a non-devotee will never understand it. Even the most simple philosophy that our bodies are changing, but we're not changing, becomes very difficult to understand. Now the same super soul who's in everyone's heart is giving us remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, and also to the ant. The ant has a soul within the body. If you try to stick a blade of grass into the ant, it'll protest. But the ant is also dependent upon the super soul for his remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. The soul within the ant's body, due to association with the ant's body, desires to get sugar. So when the ant identifies itself with a desire and dovetails its spiritual mind with the material mind, desiring to get sugar, then Krishna gives intelligence where the sugar might be. Without the super soul giving intelligence, the ant could never know what to do to get sugar. So the desire for sugar will arise within the mind of the ant, the subtle body, and the spiritual body, the spiritual mind of the ant will think that that's a good idea. And then Krishna, sensing that, just like one could understand the flavor of a flower by smelling it, gives the intelligence to the ant where to get the sugar. First of all, the ant smells the aroma of sugar, and Krishna gives the intelligence that's called sugar. And then he gives us the intelligence that if you want the sugar, this is how you move your legs, and this is where you move them to. So Krishna is reciprocating everyone's desires. As a matter of fact, everyone's desire is a prayer to Krishna. What desires Krishna will fulfill. In other words, we desire, and Krishna gives us the intelligence how to fulfill that desire. And if we have a strong enough desire, then Krishna will arrange it through the material nature that that desire will be fulfilled. But sometimes Krishna doesn't fulfill that desire. We may have a desire to fly around this room right now, but we don't have the qualifications to do it. And therefore Krishna will not give us the intelligence how to fly around this room so easily. If we execute mystic yoga for a long time, we might develop that power. Or in our next lifetime, if we sincerely desire to become a bird, to fly, Krishna will give us the body of a bird, and then we can do it very easily. So Krishna is always willing to give us what we want. The question is, what is the value of what we're desiring? Where will it lead us? For a person who's not Krishna conscious, one is usually not conscious of the different types of desire. They all seem equal to some conditioned souls. Like whether it is said that desire for living in harmony with nature, for instance, not eating too much, or eating too little, not sleeping too much or sleeping too little, to be regulated in one's habits, this is desires in the mode of goodness. But of course, in the mode of goodness, there's a relief from suffering, but one, after some time, he forgets what suffering is, and they want to enjoy. One wants to enjoy. Unmindful that along with the enjoyment will also come suffering. So just living a balanced life, a regulated life, will not necessarily give one superior happiness, so that one will avoid suffering that will be caused by living an unbalanced life. one forgets after some time the value of living a balanced life and wants to enjoy, and then enjoys, but then has to suffer also. Now, as one's memory decreases, so that's called the mode of passion. The whole world is moved by the mode of passion presently. People are anxious to work hard and suffer to get some material resources like a car or a building or even an education or family. One is willing to sacrifice one's balance, one's peace of mind, one's happiness, one's physical health in order to get some material enjoyment. But then one suffers. But then one becomes so much entangled in the different elements that have to be arranged in order to get that material enjoyment that one has no choice. It seems to one has no choice but to carry on searching after that material enjoyment and trying to tolerate the suffering that ensues from it. And after a while, suffering and enjoying, one decides to give it all up. Give up especially the regulated life and just try to enjoy without any kind of regulation whatsoever. One comes to the mode of ignorance, where one is simply absorbed in eating, sleeping, mating, defending, and trying to minimize any effort in order to do so. So one becomes like an animal with no interest in any kind of balance, any kind of quality that would seem to even be human. And then one falls into the lower modes of nature and suffers incessantly. And then after suffering incessantly, then one thinks that maybe there's some means of escaping this incessant suffering. And then one comes to inquire, and then he finds out he should try to live a life of balance. One tries to live a life of balance, and then there's some kind of relief from the suffering. And after becoming relief from the suffering, then one decides that I should just become balanced and I won't suffer at all. And one becomes balanced for some time, doesn't eat too much or eat too little, sleep too much, etc. And then one thinks this is boring, let me try to enjoy. And then goes up and down from goodness to passion to ignorance, from ignorance to passion to goodness. And Krishna gives the intelligence for all this. It all seems very natural and spontaneous, but actually it's just going being up and down through the influence of the modes, until one is fortunate enough to understand that if one takes shelter of the person giving us intelligence, then we can find out what he really wants us to do, which is to get out of the material concept of life. That goodness or passion or ignorance are not the solution to our problems. They will not stop our suffering or give us the happiness we search for. Only when we, first of all, we become transcendental, using this body for some transcendental purpose, and which the mode of goodness is helpful. In other words, when one comes to the mode of goodness, it's a great opportunity to regulate one's life in such a way that one can think about Krishna without much disturbance. Because when one is hankering for material sense enjoyment or suffering due to the incessant demands of the body and mind, it is very disturbing and very difficult to think about Krishna. But in the mode of goodness, if one can think about Krishna, then the result is that one can associate with Krishna much more easily, just by thinking about him. And by associating with Krishna, one can experience happiness which goes beyond any kind of material happiness, and therefore have a clear path what the goal of actually human life is. So Krishna is giving that intelligence in these books, such as Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, exactly this intelligence, so that we can see where we're at, and even if we're in ignorance, then we should know we should become more regulated, and if we're more regulated in passion, we should know we should gradually diminish the demands for sense gratification, especially those contrary to the laws of nature. And then when we come to goodness, realize that the opportunity in goodness is to think about Krishna. Hear about Krishna's name, his different forms, his qualities, his associates, and his pastimes, and think about how I'm related to Krishna eternally and what I can do to reestablish that relation with Krishna. And hear about those who have an established relation with Krishna, so we become inspired to establish our relationship with him also. So I'll stop there. Any questions? We have a speaker. We have a microphone.
Sometimes we wondered that if Krishna wants to deliver a living entity, he will chase after that living entity in an exchange of yayatamam prapadyante tam sataiva vrajamiham. Yeah? But other entities are not so fortunate to perceive the existence of Krishna. So the question is, if Krishna wants, really, he could make his existence more reachable or more obvious. For example, we hear the universal form where people could not deny his existence. So this discovering seems to be like also purposeful.
Krishna is not going to interfere with the independence of the living entity. If someone wants to forget him, Krishna is not going to force him to remember him by so-called becoming obvious. No, the material world is an opportunity to forget Krishna if one wants, and Krishna won't interfere with that. Therefore, he gives an equal opportunity to remember him or an equal opportunity to forget him, depending upon what we want. Here's a microphone. You can ask the question on the microphone. Give her the microphone. Good. What's that?
He will do in Slovene. Yeah. When the soul is in the birth body, is the same soul or?
You are the soul. You don't have a soul. You are the soul.
Is this the same in the birth, the same soul when he was in previous life?
Yeah, of course. You're always the same person. Always the same. Yeah. Just like if you're dreaming, you believe that you're something else. You may think that you're a princess or a bat or a bird flying overhead, but you're not any different than you are when you wake up. You're the same person, but you're just perceiving something different, that's all, and identifying yourself as something different. So now at night we sleep, and we dream sometimes. So at night we dream and we identify ourselves with some other body, and then we wake up and we identify ourselves with this body. So at night we have a night dream, and in the day we have this daydream. And Krishna consciousness needs to wake up and find out who we actually are. There's really no difference between dreaming at night of identifying ourselves with a certain body and waking up and dreaming that we're this body. The only difference usually is the duration of the dream, that's all. We take this dream as more real because it lasts longer, that's all. But there's another, not that the dream at night is not real in the sense that we're not experiencing something, just like we're experiencing something now. The energy is real, but our identification with it is unreal. Just like if you see a snake, and you think it's a snake, but actually it's a rope. So you're thinking the rope is a snake, but actually it's a rope. You're just seeing it wrongly. So because we're seeing things wrongly, we think we're this body. But when we wake up, when our consciousness is woken, then we'll actually see that we're not this body. We have another identity, a spiritual identity. Is that clear? Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna, I didn't understand that point that you explained, Maharaj, like if we live in mood of goodness, we will have desires in mood of goodness, and if we live in mood of passion, we will naturally have desires in mood of passion. Is that true? You explained something like that, but I didn't catch that point.
If we're in the mode of passion,
yeah,
then the desires will be in the mode of passion.
Naturally,
as
we will
Krishna
have that
says
desires.
In Bhagavad Gita, that's what is it? Sattvanuguna. Sattvanurupa sarvasha shada bhavati bharata shadama yo purusham yogyatstrata seva saha. Well, son of Bharata, according to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith. The living being is said to be of a particular faith according to the modes he has acquired. So when we act in the mode of passion, then along with that activity comes material activity, desires in the mode of passion. And when we have desires in the mode of passion, then we'll have a faith in the mode of passion. And therefore we'll have a tendency, when those desires arise, to believe in them, and therefore act in that way in the mode of passion, which will help increase the desires in the mode of passion.
Thank you, very clear. One more, can I ask?
Yeah.
About spiritual, about soul, about spiritual body. Bhagavad Gita says that soul is eternal, and it was never time that soul was born. Soul is always exist, isn't it? And on the same time, Prabhupada said that soul is a natural part of Krishna's body.
So expansion of Krishna.
Yeah. So can we say that from time immemorial?
From time eternal.
On one moment in the past that...
No, there's no such thing.
No.
We're only, because we think materially, we think about past, present, future. Mm-hmm. But in the spiritual platform, there's no past, present, future. There's only eternal present. Just like sun and sunlight. The sunlight comes from the sun, but you can't say there was any time that the sun didn't have sunlight, or any time the sunlight wasn't coming from the sun. It's eternal.
But are we always being separate from Krishna's body? From Krishna's body?
Yeah, of course.
Always. We never was part of like inside of Krishna's body and go outside, I mean. No. We are always separated.
That's right.
Yeah. That is, thank you.
Okay. Yes. Give her.
Why we must change our body?
We don't change the body. The material nature changes the body. We're not changing the body. But why we have to? Because we have material desires. So during this lifetime, when we act materially, then we develop desires, and those desires will bring us into another body by Krishna's arrangement. As long as we want to live here, just like if you have a child, and the child wants to go to a play, so he keeps on telling the mother they want to play. So the mother takes the child out to play. Then the child says, I want to go and eat. So then the mother takes the child and takes him to eat. So because we have desires, Krishna is fulfilling those desires by giving us different bodies to fulfill those desires. We have to do something, because souls do something. So if we don't desire to serve Krishna, then we'll have material desires, and Krishna will arrange it so for us to have a body that will fulfill those material desires. We think ourselves to be independent of Krishna, but we're completely dependent upon Krishna and his energies eternally. We can't do anything without Krishna and his energies. But when we're in ignorance, we think ourselves that we don't know who we are, and we don't know what the results of our desires are going to be, because we don't know how the material nature works. We don't know how the spiritual nature works. We don't actually know how things work. But the fact is that Krishna is controlling the material and the spiritual nature, and we get these bodies because of our desires. Because of material nature offers us things, and we accept certain things and reject certain things. According to what we're accepting and rejecting, we're preparing our next body. And then the material nature arranges our next body according to what we've done in this lifetime or in previous lifetimes and what we've desired. That's the laws of nature. All right. Hvala. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Pimanande.
तव कृपा भगवन्